Whoa, here I am. Yay. Video. Yeah, no tools today. I have free hands. I can throw the camera in the air and catch it and such. Anyway. Yeah, no video. Now, of course, I have a video. Barklord brought up, which is an interesting subject. The nature of philosophy. Is it a science? Is science philosophy? And yeah, of course, I think it's all the same thing, except, the distinction being science takes care of the material world, truths that have kind of a physical nature, and philosophy takes care of the truths of function, more or less. Obviously, there's a blending of those when you get into some of these value equations. I keep using the argument of efficiency. I keep using that word just because I think that's I think it's a commonly understood function. And for everything, there's a different measure of its efficiency for what you define as its function. Most people are just saying, okay, the only thing living things are supposed to do is survive. That's their function. And so efficiency is reaching that goal, period. So it's about how many years you live, not how well you live, which is kind of stupid, in my opinion. Or how many kids you have, this be fruitful standard. What is that? Beep, I don't know. And yeah, that's just kind of a silly way, in my opinion, to look at it. So that's the philosopher's realm, though, is where these definitions of the truth, that's what science is doing. It's just trying to discover how does it work, what's the truth of it. And philosophers are doing the same thing. What's the truth of our circumstance, the values, our psychology? Oh, that falls into that realm because it's a little bit fudgy. Some of it's a lot harder to analyze and understand and appreciate because of our psychology. It's not as, you can't just run the experiment. You can't verify through hard evidence. You have to use circumstantial evidence to prove the case. So the philosopher's job, if he does it right, or is doing it for the right reasons, is to compile the evidence, the circumstantial evidence that points to a truth they assert. So it's the same kind of thing. You have basically a theory of value, or a theory of meaning, a theory of function, and you attempt to demonstrate it. But yeah, there's a lot of crossover. Barklord was using the comparison to, in a way, insult science as saying, well, it has premises. Well, of course it has premises. I mean, you have to have premises. You have to establish certain facts as being facts to do any kind of math or figuring or something. It's got to have some kind of hard value in there. And so that's just a given, in my opinion. Doesn't make something wrong, and certainly philosophers do have to do that. So yeah, in that sense, it makes science philosophy, but there is a distinction. Science has a higher order of making more explicit claims and providing more explicit evidence, where the philosopher is still making perhaps very explicit claims, but yeah, the evidence is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more wrapped up in culture, norms, the language itself. There's lots of prejudices to get in the philosopher's way. Because what he's talking about usually is something to do with value and meaning. And these things aren't obvious. And you can't just do an experiment and say, there, that proves the value. You can't make simple comparisons. Yeah, but it's still a science. It's still the science of deduction. You find out some truths and you discern, you glean from that what it all means, what it represents, what the important feature is. And yeah, so it's science. Philosophy is science and science is philosophy. They are the same. They're just categories of the same thing, which is truth revealing. Not the best way to put it, but that's what we're doing. We're just revealing function and form and function. Discovering, better word, the truth of the world. All right. Yeah, I think that says all that needs to be said there. So getting to the philosophy part, the science of philosophy, and this concept of value. I mean, that's really what it's all about. There's really no other conversation of merit. Just as I would argue, what gives all things in the universe substance and meaning is their capacity to impact something that feels, and that's all that has meaning, nothing else. So if you aren't impacting feeling things, you don't matter. I mean, it's that, it's simple. Even if you're made of matter, you don't matter. Sorry. Rough time. I just feel like crap lately. Well, I've been doing that for 50 years, so never mind. Lovely day, though. Almost charming. So, sorry, yeah, a little bit of a, whatever you call that, a stall. I'm not trying to get somewhere. I'm just trying to find more elegant ways to say it. And you probably shouldn't do that in a walk and talk, because it's not likely to be the result. And I'll, spoil the whole thing anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, lovely day. Yeah. All right, back to where I was. All right, value equations. So that's the way I've put it. I think it's a good phrase, because that's all it really is. We're just trying to figure out what has real value weight, and how efficiently are we in our function exchanging those things with value weight. So the idea is you pay with this thing called unpleasant sensation, and you get as your commodity the reward or the good function of comfort, feeling good. And we go through our lives and we impact other people, other sentient creatures, and then we have some sort of net equation in our life that was our function. How efficiently did we run? How many miles per suffering did we get out of our engine? And I think it's a perfectly legitimate function of philosophy to attempt to answer those questions, to find a way to make it a coherent, and rationally conveyable value grid, our statement, our theory of value. So again, we're back to a theory of value, and just arguing what the premises, what the established truth should be regarding what does have real value. I'm certainly going to argue the truths of our origin are significant because they indicate some downward pressure on functionality. Dumb forces aren't likely to create brilliantly. They're likely to make sharks and tyrannosauruses and schemers. And unfortunately, that's what our real evil weapon is. We can look at other animals and they have some kind of brute force, some kind of obviously dangerous function. They have a proboscis that'll drill a hole in you, or the big teeth, crushing jaws. They all have something. And for humans, the malicious weapon is sort of hidden. It's behind, inside the skull. And it's this little scheming weapon, this intelligence. Because that's its origin. That's where we got our capacity to do this, to have conversation, to even talk about what it is to be a philosopher. Is because we developed a scheming mechanism. Something that was able to model the world so we could play with it. So we could move the things where we wanted them to be. So we could manipulate it to our advantage. And that was the game we played. And through that mammalian, generally speaking, intelligence, there was some quirk of the process that ended up bestowing us with a capacity that had huge potential. And so we did this vocabulary thing, did the storage of information thing that just enabled us to learn over time, to learn from each other, generation to generation, and to build on what the previous generation had learned. And that's the game. That's what we are. And that as a context just seems to me almost, it's a huge piece of circumstantial evidence that we should be very suspect of of what we are accomplishing. Because in function, we're not any different than these, bloody tooth and clawed beasties that are roaming the woods, or at least would be if we didn't eradicate all of them. That's our nature also. That's what we are in function. That's where we came from for 99.99% of our existence. We were a brutal beast. Brutal because we could trick animals into running off cliffs, or figure out how to, throw rocks into their, deep into their tissues. Pointy rocks. We used our scheming mind as an incredibly effective weapon of destruction to anything that might unfortunately cross our path. So anyway, I'm just saying that context is in itself a big piece of evidence. It just glares at you and says, yes, we are animals at heart, at function, underneath this thing, this veneer of civilization and polite conversation. There's a monster, who would bleed you out for a meal. And that just says something right there. For what? To survive. So it could declare itself superior to the other beasties. We in all likelihood pushed the woolly mammoth into extinction. Now when you just consider how magnificent that animal must have been. It's so hard for, I don't think you can make a rational argument that it wasn't a huge loss. In terms of just a magnificent creation. We defeated it. We, in our smelly animal skins, destroyed it. So that makes us kind of a monster, kind of the great white shark of the land. And maybe we shouldn't have such reverence for our existence. So anyway, there's lots of other reasons to say humanity has failed. But our origins are a huge one. Because we're shit. We're just a garbage-eating, killing machine. And that's how we got here. That's how Christianity took over the world. Didn't convert people, it killed people. And that's what humanity has done. It's just spread, like a fungus, wiping everything out in its path. So anyway, till next time, and such. Yeah, I wanted more out of this video. I had places to go, but I didn't get there. So it'll have to be for another day. I don't know where I'll put it. I'll figure it out later. Okay, till next time.